4 police officers in St. Louis were recovering from gunshot wounds Tuesday, while in Las Vegas one man was dead and an officer was clinging to life following another night of sometimes violent protests across the nation.
The clashes took place hours after President Donald Trump announced he would send the U.S. military to cities if the violence continued, and in the wake of the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. There were peaceful demonstrations in Phoenix and Fort Worth, Texas, among other places, but contentious moments in Los Angeles, Chicago and elsewhere.
Trump was drawing scorn from some governors after accusing them of being weak for failing to quell the protests, and from a D.C. bishop who accused the president of sanctioning the use of tear gas to clear peaceful protesters from a churchyard.
A closer look at some recent developments.
What we're reading today, health experts warn that large protests heighten risk of spreading the coronavirus.
How to talk to your kids, Floyd. Arbery, Taylor. What do we tell our children?
Our live blog will be updated throughout the day. For first in the morning updates, sign up for the daily briefing. Here's the latest news.
The Federal Bureau of Prisons has imposed a national lockdown in a move resembling the agency's response to mass rioting at several facilities 25 years ago. Federal authorities, already struggling to contain deadly outbreaks of the coronavirus that has left 68 inmates dead, had ordered nationwide restrictions on inmate movements in March in an attempt to limit the virus spread. But officials took the more restrictive action late Monday, citing the sometimes violent protests on the nation's streets.
In light of extensive protest activity occurring around the country, the BOP, in an abundance of caution, is implementing an additional, temporary security measure to ensure the good order and security of our institutions, the Bureau said in a statement.
Kevin Johnson.
TikTok promised to promote diversity on its platform and denied claims the social media service blocked posts featuring hashtags related to the death of George Floyd. TikTok said a technical glitch made it temporarily appear as if posts with the hashtags #BlackLivesMatter and #GeorgeFloyd received no views. The platform said it was dealing with a display issue, and videos featuring those tags amassed more than 2 billion views.
The problem was not an intentional act to suppress the experiences and invalidate the emotions felt by the Black community, read an apology blog post from Vanessa Pappas, TikTok's general manager, and director of creator community Kudzi Chikambu.
Brett Molina.
The music industry took a break from business as usual to mark Blackout Tuesday to call attention to the deaths of George Floyd and other Black Americans. Big names in entertainment like Jimi Hendrix, Katy Perry, Kylie Jenner, Kevin Hart and Timothée Chalamet showed their support Tuesday on social media, using the hashtags #BlackoutTuesday and #TheShowMustBePaused to help draw attention to the effort.
While this is only one day, we are working on ways to actively fight for meaningful, systematic change against the injustices Black people continue to face, the post from the official at Hamilton Musical Instagram account read.
Gary Dinges.
Dozens of protesters took refuge inside a stranger's home in Washington overnight Monday as police funneled a crowd of demonstrators onto one street after a 7 p.m. citywide curfew. Rahul Dubey told NBC Washington that he acted instinctively when he opened his door to roughly 60 demonstrators, near his house around 10 p.m., and allowed them to stay until the curfew was lifted at 6 a.m. Reports on social media showed police corralling a group of demonstrators onto one D.C. street as they used pepper spray on the crowd. Dubey told the TV station he was also pepper sprayed.
The crowd came racing through like a tornado, he said. We had to keep the door open and keep pulling them in. ... It's the same you would do if there's a storm.
Ryan W. Miller.
The University of Texas football team had a 3-hour virtual meeting on Monday, and virtually no football discussed. Coach Tom Herman opened the floor to a group of mostly Black athletes who were frustrated and angry over police brutality, senseless killing and what it's like being Black in politically divided America.
If you're white, we can't understand. Herman said. I will never know, you will never know, none of us will ever know what it's like to have that genuine fear. When I make an illegal U-turn and get pulled over, I fear about what the cost of the ticket is going to be. I don't fear that I'm going to get dragged out of my car and maybe killed because of something I said or did.
Brian Davis, Austin American statesman.
One man was dead and a Las Vegas police officer was on life support Tuesday following a night of angry protests that included 2 separate shooting incidents. Sheriff Joe Lombardo said officers were attempting to clear protesters throwing rocks and bottles from Las Vegas Boulevard when the officer was shot sometime before midnight. The officer was in grave condition, Lombardo said.
Lombardo said the second incident involved the fatal shooting of an armed man wearing body armor by police and federal agents guarding a federal building in downtown Las Vegas. Lombardo said the man had reached for a firearm. Investigations of both shootings were continuing, Lombardo said.
What has occurred is utterly unacceptable, Lombardo said. I hope the community sees it that way, too.
4 St. Louis police officers were shot early Tuesday as peaceful protest devolved in mayhem, Police Chief John Hayden said. The police department tweeted that the officers were taken to a hospital with injuries that were not believed to be life-threatening after the shootings overnight. It was unclear who had fired the shots.
Several hundred people rallied peacefully Monday afternoon outside the Justice Center in downtown St. Louis, including Mayor Lyda Krewson and St. Louis Public Safety Director Jimmy Edwards. Protesters later walked to the Gateway Arch National Park and then onto nearby Interstate 64. But later Monday, protesters gathered in front of police headquarters, where officers fired tear gas. Some protesters smashed windows at a downtown 7-Eleven store and stole items from inside before the building was set on fire.
Family attorney Benjamin Crump on Monday said funeral services for Floyd will be held June 9 in Houston. There will be a public viewing next Monday in Texas, Crump said.
Crump added there will be 2 separate memorial services for Floyd. One will take place Thursday in Minneapolis at North Central University. The other will be in Clinton, North Carolina on Saturday. Both memorial services will run from 1 p.m. until 3 p.m.
Boxer Floyd Mayweather will pay for Floyd's funeral and memorial services after the family accepted his offer of support. The former world champion has not met Floyd's family, according to Leonard Ellerb, the CEO of Mayweather Promotions.
The Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Washington condemned President Donald Trump on Monday for his visit to St. John's Episcopal Church near the White House after law enforcement officers used tear gas to clear protesters from the area.
Let me be clear, the president just used a Bible, the most sacred text of the Judeo-Christian tradition, and one of the churches of my diocese without permission as a backdrop for a message antithetical to the teachings of Jesus and everything that our churches stand for, Bishop Marianne Edgar Budde told CNN.
And to do so, he sanctioned the use of tear gas by police officers in riot gear to clear the churchyard. I am outraged, Budde said. Budde is the bishop of the Episcopal Diocese Washington, overseeing more than 80 Episcopal congregations, including St. John's. She is the first woman to serve in her position.
Janine Santucci.
Governors including one Republican pushed back at President Donald Trump on Monday after he told them on a phone call they are weak and need to use force to dominate riots that have erupted during protests over the death of George Floyd.
Democratic Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a frequent target of Trump, called the phone call deeply disturbing, adding that instead of offering support or leadership to bring down the temperature at protests, Trump told governors to put it down, or we would be overridden. Quote,
the president repeatedly and viciously attacked governors, who are doing everything they can to keep the peace while fighting a once-in-a-generation global pandemic, Whitmer said in a statement.
Governor Charlie Baker, a moderate Republican from left-leaning Massachusetts who is typically reluctant to take aim at Trump, raised the remarks himself during a news conference. That's not what we need in Boston. It's not what we need right now in Massachusetts, Baker said, appearing to choke up. And it's definitely not what we need right now across this great country of ours either.
Joey Garrison.
Contributing, The Associated Press.